Hey everybody, this is me, Undead Viking. I want to take some time out of today to talk to you about an expansion to this game, Epic Resort. The expansion name is Villain's Vacation. But before I get into that, let me just tell you a really quick story. And by really quick story, I mean kind of a longer story that'll take some time. But anyway, I first ran into Ben Harkins, the guy that is in charge of Floodgate Games. I first ran into him at the first Gen Con I ever attended. I went by his booth, he flagged me down, he called me over. He said he recognized me from a video, which is really nice to hear. But then he proceeded to show me his game that he was kind of debuting there called Legacy, and but time travel game, and I've talked about it before, which I really enjoyed. And you know, and I kind of ran into him a couple more times while we were at the convention. I played a few games with him, and we had a lot of fun. And I didn't really think, you know, one way or the other. I just thought that was really cool. I met that guy. And then when I went to Con of the North, like 6 months later, I went into the vastly smaller dealer hall, and there he was. And I was like, Ben, what are you doing here? And turns out he's a Minnesota native, and I'm from Minnesota too. And for whatever reason, neither of us seemed to happen to mention that to each other, or think it was important enough to mention. And it was just one of those weird, like, happenstance things. Like, how could I have not, like, asked, or how did that not occur? But anyway, regardless, ever since that time, you know, I've kind of followed his company, and they've Floodgate Games is kind of like one of my favorite smaller publishers that are out there. And I really shouldn't say smaller, because he has several games out now, and they've been very successful. I mean, Epic Resort was one that I really enjoyed. Vault Wars was something fairly recently that I really enjoyed. So, you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, he kind of does the publishing thing as a side thing. It isn't like his normal thing, but it's been exciting for me to watch him grow and his company expand and whatever. And you know, it's been fun to see his output and to see what he's been creating. So, regardless, whether that means anything or not, I think it's really cool that he's from Minnesota, and I think it's really cool that he's being successful in the designer board game world. So, regardless, as I said, Epic Resort, I like this game. I did a review of this back in 2014 when it came out. I will put a link in the YouTube thing down there. You can probably check that out if you want to go back and check that out and see how this game is played. I am not going to go over the gameplay. I'm just going to kind of show you what you're going to get with the Villain's Vacation expansion. You know, so I mean, but like if you haven't played Epic Resort, well, why haven't you? And if you want to check that out, you definitely can. I do know that with this Kickstarter, that if you like the idea of Epic Resort, you can go ahead and pick up both the base game and the expansion in one fell swoop. And I think if you haven't, I think that's something you might want to check out. Epic Resort, the idea is that each person that's playing the game, for 2 to 4 people, you are running a resort that is for basically Dungeons and Dragons characters. Adventurers that have, like, gone and fought in dungeons and mountains and caves and what have you, finally need to take a break. They need rest, they need relaxation. And they come to your resort, and they go to the attractions, and they try to just heal up and rest up and get their minds set and minds right, so then they can go and they can head out back into the dungeons, back fighting giants and dragons and, you know, specters and whatever. But the problem is that, you know, because they're adventurers, monsters tend to follow them. And because of where it's a fantasy world, your resort, it's in the fantasy world. So, like, there are monsters that are going to end up attacking your resort. But thankfully, if you've recruited the right adventurers to be at your particular attractions, what have you, they will defend your resort against those problems, if you will. Now, I've mentioned this before. You know, after doing this review thing for nearly a decade, you know, you tend to see kind of like the same themes just, you know, revolving and coming out over and over again. Now, that doesn't mean that a theme of trading or mercantilism or whatever is a bad thing. The mechanisms of the game can be different. But when somebody goes to the trouble of making a game that has a distinct, different theme, I really, really appreciate that about the game, because I'm not saying it's easy to do by any means, and I'm not saying that, like, hey, designers out there, start making more stuff that has more diversity. I'm not saying that at all. But when somebody has that, moment where they, like, all of a sudden think of a brand new idea, or at least a brand, not so much like maybe mechanisms or the gameplay portion or whatever, but they come up with, like, something that, just has a different immersion, or a different well, I said theme like 10 times here, but just thematically feels like it's telling me a different story. I really like that. I mean, and so I appreciate when somebody has that eureka moment and they come up with something like Epic Resort. So anyway, all that being said, let's dive in. I'll show you what you're going to add to this game with the expansion, and then we'll come back here and I'll talk to you about why I like this particular expansion, and why this is an expansion, and I'm going to mention this again probably, but why this type of expansion is my favorite kind of expansion. Alright, cool. Let's do this. This is what you're going to get with the Villains Vacation expansion to Epic Resort. You're going to get a bunch of new cards you're going to be able to add to the game. Now, this is my favorite kind of expansion. This isn't adding another board. This isn't adding a bunch of new rules. It's adding some super cool new cards that are just going to, like, freshen up a game that you may have played, several times, and just kind of adds a few new wrinkles and allows you to change up your strategies and your tactics as you play the game. And also, it expands the exploration of the game as well, but that's something I'll talk about a little bit more in my conclusion. So, anyway, I'm just going to kind of touch base with all the different things that you're going to get. As I said in the introduction, I'm not going to go through the how-to-play game. I'm going to provide the link to my original review for Epic Resort. So if you want to learn how to play the game, you can go ahead and check that out. Now, it should be mentioned that they did refine a few of the rules with this expansion. Just they altered just a couple of things with Epic Resort. And I do invite you to go ahead and check out the Kickstarter page. You can check out those rules, and you can see what they've done as far as with minor changes. Now, this doesn't break the game in any way, shape, or form. It's just one of those things where through playtesting and what have you, they've just made the game a little bit better without changing much about the game at all. Anyway, so pretty simple. These cards here and here and here are obviously dock cards. You're going to go ahead and put those with the dock cards that you're going to get with the base game that you theoretically already own. You can't play this expansion by itself, but that should be evident as it is. You're going to get this big giant Kraken card. This is a big giant nasty monster that will attack. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. This is just set aside when you begin the game, because as the Kraken attacks by drawing these cards, eventually it will come into play. There's also a bunch of new workers that you can just fold into the game and use, and I will talk about those in a little bit. But I just wanted to touch base quickly with both of these two decks. So this deck of cards here of, once again, dock cards that you'll just be folding into the game. These are, as you can see, these are just new tourists, and so we have kind of a standard, like, route. And I should mention that, the artwork, these aren't ghosts. They will be fully fleshed out art. This is a prototype deck that I was sent. Just keep that in mind as we show. So, that, it's, pretty straightforward. But here we go, just kind of showing you Grave Robbers. If you place it... Oh, and I should mention that all these cards will have this little notation right here. So then that shows that it is part of this Villains Vacation expansion. So if you ever want to just go back to playing the base game without these cards, they're easily removed. And I do like that. I've had a few expansions where they don't add a little mark or a little signification on the side there, and so if you want to, like, remove something from the game, you're like, what is this card from this? Is this card from that? So it's cool that they add that. But anyway, so Grave Robbers, if placed on an empty attraction, you gain a coin, or gain, let's see right there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then here, we'll go ahead and move a little bit. Obviously, here's like the different scoring and everything on each one of those. So here we have the cultists. This is it gets a bonus when it goes to an attraction that has a villain already on it, and I'll talk about the villains here in just a little bit. And And then, because they got to even it out, here's groupies. And groupies, it's basically the same thing. They get the bonus if they're going to an attraction that's got a hero. And I kind of dig that guy with the little foam sword and holding a little mug there. And I think there was one more. Here we go. And so these are the fire chasers, which I like these because you gain this bonus if the attraction has a flame marker on it. So, and you can see these guys, obviously pyromaniacs and what have you. So, very thematic as far as the additions to the game and as far as what they add. And like I do like the fact that like I said, like you have both the cultists and the groupies. So depending on which route you're going to go, you might not even get a villain. You might not even get a villain onto one of your locations that you're playing with Epic Resort. So just keep that in mind. So here we have the different villains that you're going to get. They have the scoring, obviously, and that you're going to get when you. They play normally, like when you played Epic Resort, you're trying to get the villains rested just like you're trying to get the heroes rested. Now the big difference between villains and heroes are villains aren't ever going to help defend your resort. They're not your buddies, but you can still score some points, and in general they score more points than a normal hero would. So that kind of like solves the question of like, why would I bother getting these if they're not going to help defend my different things that I have on my resort, my attractions. So, but that's why, because ultimately they're going to be worth a few more points. But so, when attracted, look at the top 6 cards of the deck, the Corrupt Vizier, and I should mention that you're getting multiples of these, 2 of them each. So, but here, the Corrupted Vizier, when attracted, look at the top 6 cards of the deck, place any number on the top order, place the remaining cards at the bottom in any order. And then also, when scored, discard the top monster from the monster pile. Up next is the Reckless Wizard. This kind of ties in with the Pyromaniacs. When you attract them, you add a flame token marker to the attraction when you add it to the attraction that he has. And then once again, when you score, you discard the top monster from the monster pile. Now we have the Crazed Alchemist. When attracted, you may spend your stars, as it were, these little coins here, until the end of the season. And so I dig that art. And with all the games that I've that Floodgate games seems to come out, they always have really, really nice looking art. And as always, this art does when they Floodgate games designs games, they obviously they keep the same artists, they keep the same theme when they have these expansions that come out. So I do appreciate that about it. Now I like the Vampire Lord. You notice all of these, like you can see, they have a heart to start with, but you notice the Vampire Lord has no health whatsoever down here. But if you look here, when attracted, each adjacent hero loses 2 hearts, loses 2 health, but you gain +2 health for each health a hero loses this way. That's what the Vampire Lord gets. So, you can kind of see how that works. Like, if you're going to bring him into, one of your attraction, he might, he's going to take away the health of the heroes that you have, and some of the work you've done as far as getting your heroes up and running and getting them to the point where you're going to be able to score them. You're going to give that up to work on the Vampire Lord here. So cool character, cool thing, and I do like. I like the fact that the Vampire Lord is carrying this umbrella, and and then I thought about it for a second. That's just kind of funny. He's carrying an umbrella, and then I realized he's going to the beach and he needs an umbrella because the sun doesn't. So I was like, oh, very funny, very nice. I like that. Anyway, here we have the Vile Necromancer. At the end of each season, gain 1 to each attraction without any people on it. So once again, this is thematic, and I do like the fact that I've talked a lot recently with a few people. I've talked Epic Resort up as far as the game, and because I really like the game, but because of the uniqueness of the theme, the fact that the whole idea is that these are the heroes that they need a break from being an adventurer for a while, and of course trouble just follows them anyway, as happens with adventurers, of course, and trouble seems to track them down no matter where they end up. But so once again, here we have a necromancer. So it's like you gain people to each faction without one. So because they're animating dead people. So it's kind of neat. Anyway, here we have the Wicked Witch. Finally, I shouldn't say finally. This is just the last one. Gain a health each time an attraction with people on it is upgraded, and so you just once again just another cool little. And remember, all of these are going to have the 0 on it, meaning that they are not going to help you fight. They're not. But they can still get hurt by the monsters that attack those locations. Just because they're a villain, it doesn't mean they're impervious to harm. So just keep that in mind as you play the game. So, all right, these are when the Kraken strikes locations. So basically what happens with this is I'll let you read it here and I'm out. But the player with the most tourists loses tourists until they have the same number as the player with the next highest amount. If 2 or more people are tied, then you're going to lose down to the next person. So like so if there's 2 people that tied with 10 and there's somebody with 7, the 2 people tied with 10 would go down to 7. Just keep that in mind. If you're playing a 2-player game and you tie, then obviously nothing will happen because neither of you have like the most, and you can't. Well, 2 of you have the most, but there's nobody lower than you, so you can't lose that. But the thing is that you place those tourists on the Kraken card, which is right over here. And you discard the top monster off the monster deck when this happens. And then when there's 10 or more tourists on the Kraken, you remove them, and then you go ahead and place you're going to go ahead and have the Kraken strike. So it attacks the resort that has the most points, and it attacks each and every one of their attractions that they have. So the Kraken is tough. And plus, it's all like kind of a timing thing because of the fact that you don't know when these cards are going to pop up out of the docks location. And I kind of like that it is the docks and it's a Kraken, obviously, because it's a sea creature. So I should turn this up. It's a sea creature that's like, lurking amongst the piers or whatever, and just kind of shows up every once in a while to mess with you. Claiming tourists off of the resorts with its tentacles and what have you. The thing is that like you can kind of get an impression like as the tourists land on the card, as you're getting closer and closer to that point where it's going to break and it's going to attack. You might be in a situation where you're in the lead and you're kind of hoping somebody will take over that lead in points so you don't have to deal with the Kraken attacking you. And then you're in a situation where if you have less, it's kind of a gamble whether or not. And it kind of adds that little wrinkle to the game. As I said, I like things that add, like changing up the strategies, changing up the tactics, and giving you a fresh idea and feel for the game. All right, so the last deck of cards, these are workers. You can choose to use these workers with the workers that you have as normal. And I'm going to just kind of rifle through these quickly, and these are all fit, like the theme again. Here we have Igor. So when you discard it, you add health to a villain, and you get multiples, obviously. And like I said, there's some that are not going to have it. If you discard it, you purchase an attraction at a discount with this. Here we have a Mason. You can remove fire from an attraction. Always nice, so it doesn't burn down. The organ grinder, lose people from your resort, gain 2. Okay, and the ghost hunter. Oh, okay, these are the ones I want to talk about actually. So the cool things about the ghost hunter, the dragon keeper, and the war admiral. Each one of these is, if you discard after a spirit monster attacks you, you put it in your scoring pile. And spirits in your scoring pile are worth 1 point each at the end of the game. And so I like these. I like these guys a lot because of the fact that they add this. But the Ghost Hunter gets spirits. The Dragon Keeper, as you can probably guess, is going to get dragons. And the War Admiral is going to get pirates when they attack. And each time, and so now this adds, once again, like, it's kind of like a new mechanism within the game or whatever, but it isn't, like, radical as far as a new mechanism. And something I'll go in a little bit more when I do my conclusion. But I like the fact that, once again, you have, this is like, it isn't technically, like Ben, the guy who designed the game, this calls it a deck evolution game. And so these give you different cards that you can then get into your deck, that you can prepare yourself for those attacks, and it gives you a different way of being able to use the monsters that are attacking, ultimately for points that can, theoretically, propel you into the lead. And once again, just a slight little wrinkle, doesn't change the core mechanisms of the game in any way, but it adds a little bit of a wrinkle so you can kind of switch things up and change things up, and the game plays differently and keeps it fresh and exciting and interesting. So there you go. That's what you're going to be adding to the game with this expansion. I know there's some new attractions. I don't have those that are going to be part of a stretch goal. So, I mean, there's going to be even more stuff that's going to be added on to the game. So I invite you to go ahead and check out that at the Kickstarter page, and so you can see what else is going to be added. And I'm kind of a little bit upset that I didn't get those attractions, because I really wanted to play with them. I think that's the coolest part of the game. But these are all awesome expansions and that expand to the game, and I enjoy each one of these little aspects. And if you like Epic Resort, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want to add this to the game as it is. So, but let me talk more about all of that and just why this is like my favorite kind of expansion a little bit further in my conclusion. All right, thank you very much for checking that out and checking out the cards. If you have any questions about those, by all means, ask away. I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. I'm really not going to dwell on the types of things that you have in there. I really covered, in my opinion, what I really like about all those things that are in the expansion that are going to be added to this base game. Now, I love expansions to games that I really, really enjoy. Basically because, and I've said this a few times, I am an exploratory gamer. I'm not somebody that enjoys playing a game and then coming at it in a different way where it's like, okay, I've played this game 6 times, I really know how the game is played now. Now, let's spend the next 30 plays trying to, get that really, really good top score. Let's see if I can squeeze another 2 or 3 points out of each and every turn, and it's just kind of like, I'm like, what I mean, I don't mind when a game, gets to that point, because, I can still, if somebody suggests, hey, let's play, Pillars of the Earth, for example, oh, I haven't played Pillars of the Earth in a couple of years, let's play it, and I was like, yeah, it's been a couple of years for a reason, but, so I'm like, okay, fine, let's play Pillars of the Earth, because I can just sit down and I can play it, I know the rules, and we can just go at it, right? So, but Pillars of the Earth, because I played it 30, 40 times, thinking roughly, it doesn't have anything left to give me. It doesn't have any surprises. It doesn't have any moments of oh, look at that, that's never happened before, because it's just it's I've revolved through that game as many times as I have, and there's these games that are behind me and over here and back behind the camera and the stuff that's in the other room over there. There's lots of games like that I have played 2-3 dozen times where, it's just a game at this point. But the thing is, there's something so wonderful and beautiful about the first time you crack open a game, and it's like, oh look, this is the new thing, and it's got all this stuff in it. I don't know how this stuff is going to work and mix together, and I don't know how these things are going to, come together into this little compound that's going to be a game that I'm going to play with my buddies and or my daughter or my wife, and I'm going to go, oh wow, look at this, and then it just expands out and gives me this experience, and so that's what, when I get a brand new box, that's what games are to me. It's this is an experience in this box that is just waiting to be expanded and enjoyed by me and the other people at the table. And so now all of a sudden, okay, you play it and you're like, that's kind of neat. And then you play it again, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool too. And then the third time you're like, well, I've seen this before. And the fourth time you're like, oh, okay, that's kind of a different way I could have played that round or whatever. And by the time you get to the 5th or the 6th play, you're just kind of like, well, okay, it's a fun game, but, it doesn't have that, that wow, that was really cool, let's play it again kind of thing for me. And I don't mind that. If I get 6+ plays out of a game, I think that's money well spent. I think that's time well spent. You know, because the game is there that it's to facilitate the time with my friends. That's how I look at it. And you know, and bad games can still facilitate a good time with my friends. Games that I've played many times that don't really excite me anymore can still facilitate a good time with my friends, and that's what I see it as. But obviously, a really great game that's really fresh and really new facilitates that great time with my friends. So now I have this great game experience and I have this great time with my friends, and then you put those together and oh wow, that was a great way to spend a few hours, right? Anyway, so the thing is that I really enjoy expansions that just say, okay, you had this stuff, you had this like silly putty that you squished together, and you played it, and it was squishing around your hands, and but now you've kind of formed it, you know, and you got this little cube, you know, in your hand, and it's like, and because you've played it so many times, and you know what to expect, and you have some good memories about that little cube of silly putty, and it's fun. But now here comes like this other glob of silly putty that's the expansion that has like these new cards and these new mechanisms and these new things that are going to be, go ahead and we're going to go ahead and just stick this in all these different locations on that little cube that you've slowly created over those several times of playing. And now all of a sudden, like, I have this weird, you know, oblong rhombus shaped thing that kind of resembles, you know, that experience I was having, but now I get to go ahead and I get to play with it again, I get to squish it together, and I get to get it back to being that cube again. Now that's probably the worst analogy ever, but I hope that you understand that, like, that's awesome. Now, what I don't like about expansions, and it's like, okay, I've got that cube, right? And I've got that feeling of the game, and I know the rules, and I sit down and I play, I know exactly what it is, and I like that. There's a wonderful feeling of comfort in that. What I don't like is when somebody comes over and he says, you know, and they've got that stuff, they got that extra stuff that you're going to add to that chunk of silly putty, that cube of silly putty, but the first thing they do is like, okay, remember those, like, these rules 3, 7, and 11 that you learned? Yeah, we're going to go ahead and rip those out and throw those away. That's not going to be part of the game anymore. And now we got these brand new rules that we're going to jam in here, and now you're going to learn a totally different way about how to play the game. And I don't like that expansion. I don't like that at all. I mean, there's a reason why I own every single Talisman expansion, because it adds like a ton of new cards that I can add to the giant adventure decks that they have in those games. Because it's something new. It expands that exploration of the game. It expands the excitement that I had for that game. And that's what Epic Resort does. Yes, there are some very slight little changes to the rules, some different little mechanisms that, like, the villains are different from the heroes. But it doesn't change the way the game is played. And I hope you understand that. That's the best way I can do it. So, if you like Epic Resort, there's absolutely no reason for you not to get this expansion. I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't want to get it. It's just going to add more mileage to the game. It's going to add new and exciting things to the game. It's going to make you, all the things you loved about Epic Resort, it's just going to add on top of that. If you've never played Epic Resort and you've been interested in it, I say pick up the expansion right away. You don't have to play with it right away, but I mean, I can't see why you wouldn't add it into the game to begin with. I kind of envy those people, actually, because I like the changes that this has, that adds to this game. If you, like, aren't sure, then, like, I mean, there's, like, Epic Resort's been out for like 2 years. Don't take my word for it. Go and read the countless reviews. Go and watch the countless videos people have done for it, and check it out and see if it's a game you want to play. Check out the Kickstarter. Check out the Floodgate Games website. You know, there's lots of resources that you can use to do that as well. So, for me, it's an instant back. I can't think of a reason. I'm just excited. Even though obviously I played it, I'm excited to see the new attractions because Ben was a jerk and didn't send those to me. And I'm excited to see like what the stretch goals and what else gets added to this, because I really want to. I want more stuff. I want more stuff jammed in this box, so I can keep playing this for many more years. All right, so there you go. Cool. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. It was a little bit long for an expansion. I apologize, but I kind of went off on a little tangent there. That's something that I feel pretty strongly about, so I apologize for that. But if you have any questions about expansions or Epic Resort or whatever, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those to the best of my ability. Until next time, this is me, the Undead Viking, telling you to have yourself one heck of an awesome day. All right, bye-bye.